welcome everybody to our virtual roundtable on the visitor economy in Lancashire and how we are looking to assess the impact on the sector and to support businesses in moving towards reopening. I'm delighted to be joined by a panel of experts, and I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves to you now. And I'd like to begin with Lyndsey from Visit Britain.
Hello, Lyndsey Turner-Swift, Head of England Planning and Delivery at Visit England. Currently working on the BTA's Recovery and Industry Work Programme.
And then if I can move on and ask Debbie, please, to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Debbie Chinn. I am a business advisor or business relationship manager with Growth Lancashire, and I report on the Boost Business Support Programme for COVID-19.
Thank you, Debbie. And if I could now ask Chris, please, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Boyle. I'm Head of Employment. I'm at Napthens Solicitors, and I'm currently dealing with a lot of organisations trying to find their way through this whole coronavirus maze, which we currently have.
And now, could I ask Antony and Alison, please, to introduce yourselves?
Antony Chesworth. I'm the CEO and founder of ekm.com, which is an e-commerce platform that lets anyone set up an online shop and hopefully spend life doing something that they love.
I'm Alison Chesworth, and I head up the talent at EKM, so looking after all the recruitment side and making sure that people want to work for EKM.
Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, David, please could I ask you to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm David Wilson. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the British Beer and Pub Association. So our members brew about 90% of the beer consumed in the UK and own 20,000 of the pubs.
That's a lot of pubs. Thank you, David. So first up, we've had a question come in for everybody, that just to kick us off. And somebody's asked for the panel to let them know what they think, other than working from home, the biggest difference is going to be for your business over the next 6 months, for your individual business. So if we could start with David on that one. Obviously you represent a number of businesses, but for you personally, what do you think the biggest difference is going to be over the next 6 months?
For us, it's been a real challenge, obviously working virtually as a team in pretty much full-on crisis mode for the last few months. I think that as a membership organisation, we'll probably have less physical meetings in future, and we'll tap into the use of technology that we've embraced during this crisis to make speedier decisions, which will be a good thing. On the downside, one of the things I've enjoyed most about my job is travelling the country and meeting businesses around the place. I'd be disappointed if I'm having to do less of that because we're all just stuck on computers. So it's there are pluses and minuses, I think, of how we're going to emerge from this. Obviously, our biggest concern at the moment is making sure that as many of our member pubs and brewers have a viable business as we come through this crisis, and that's a significant concern, as I know it is for a lot of businesses in Lancashire.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David. And Antony and Alison, obviously this is your world, the digital technology world that David was talking about there. Has life changed much for you, or is it really just quite similar?
Personally, it's been a massive change, as I've got 3 children now at home that I've been having to homeschool. What schools are going to do for people with children is going to be a challenge, and parents, I think, are going to address it in different ways. But I also think it's given people the time to realise that you actually do need to be online, you need to be embracing technology, and that you've got to be adaptable and quick to move with the times. That's, from me personally, what I think it'll be. With regards to business-wise, it's just been business as usual, really, if not busier than ever before. We've got customers that are doing absolutely amazing because they've already set up, they already know what they're doing, they've adapted. There's been all sorts of businesses.
Yeah, I mean we're seeing across our shop network, we're seeing that it's double the traffic. I mean, it's more than every day since the lockdown. It's bigger than Black Friday. You know, we've seen customers, obviously customers in the hospitality sector, catering and things like that. Obviously, they've been really badly hit. But then the flip side to that, which you don't often hear in the media, because the media only likes to talk about the negative story. Everyone wants to talk about the negative stories about all these people that have you know, it's dire and everyone's losing their jobs. But the positive stories that you never hear are, we've, at the same thing, had customers who've gone from, say, turning over, say, £5,500 a month, doing £150,000 a month, you know, life-changing amounts of money. And across the whole network, it's up double, which is crazy. And I think those are the sort of stories that we should be talking about. Not all this negative doom and gloom and the world's about to end. The world has been moved on here 5 years. It needed to be moved on. And this is the kick that everyone's needed to be pushed forward 5 years. It's not necessarily a negative thing. And I know it's for some people, but you've got to look at the positives. The other side of this is there's people now that are at home who are realising that what they do every day, they hate it. Because 3 out of 4 people hate what they do. They hate the job. Work is a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing they don't like doing, and they're happy to be furloughed. They're happy to be furloughed, sat at home doing things. They hate what they do. And I'm hoping the thing that comes out of this is people actually realise that they should do something that they love. They should follow the dream and the passion and do something that they actually want to do. And it's giving that opportunity, the time. Because people are going to come out of this, the people that have been, you know, been unfortunate enough to be furloughed or whatever, that they've had 2 months, if not 3 months, of doing something hopefully they love to do. They've hopefully took this opportunity to learn a new skill, a new hobby, play a musical instrument. What I hope they haven't done is piss it all away watching Game of Thrones. And that's the problem here. People have sat at home doing nothing. And the same people that you see on the news that are at the beach haven't been following social distancing rules, are out there partying and doing all this stuff, are the same people who come when these rules change, which I know we'll be talking about shortly. They'll be the same ones that are complaining, oh, it's not safe to return to work. It's safe for me to go to the beach with all my friends, but I hope people have took the opportunity to do something that they love and to adapt their businesses and evolve themselves.
I think I've seen as a way that businesses have changed is that they've been, especially a lot of entrepreneurial businesses, they're able to adapt, they're able to see the opportunity that's in front of them, and they're grasping it with both hands and throwing themselves into it, and I think that's inspiring.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, a lot of Lancashire's businesses across all sectors have been working really hard to kind of innovate and diversify through this situation. I think that, you know, tourism and hospitality is quite unique in terms of it does have a lot of people working in it who are very passionate about what they do and have been forced to actually close their doors to people and kind of change their messages from please visit to please don't visit, which is a really unusual thing for them. Lyndsey, if I can come to you, obviously Visit Britain, you know, it's been a very difficult shift in terms of you're no longer able to get people to visit Britain. So what do you think the biggest impact's going to be over the next kind of 6 months?
Directly about Visit England and Visit Britain, of course, we have the same challenges of every other organisation in terms of virtual working. So we were just about to do a systems test. So we were all going to work from home on a particular day to test all of the systems because they've never been tested in this way to this extent. And then obviously we were all forced into lockdown. So we had no time to test the systems, but they've actually been working quite well and we've had to do upgrades. But as a global organisation, I think there will be a new normal. I think we will work differently as a consequence of this, even as we start to come out of lockdown and we can return to the office in some way, shape or form. I think virtual working is here to stay for many of us. Collaboration has always been at the heart of the Tourist Board's agenda, as you know, but on the positive side, there's never been, a bigger time really. We've had so many positive conversations with so many different parts of the sector. Just to mirror David's point around industry bodies, those relationships are just going from strength to strength, and there's a real sense of corralling and pulling together to get over this crisis and to work together on the recovery response. So I hope that is here to stay too, and that will last beyond the 6 months. Third point, I think around us as an organisation, again, our strategy is obviously going to be very different. So we had a business plan in place that we were just about to launch for the year ahead. And now we are looking at essentially a very domestic focused year really, because we know international might return towards the end of the year into the final quarter. So that's challenging in terms of managing that internally. We're working in new ways. We're looking across our teams. We're all kind of chipping in and doing things that are not in our day-to-day job descriptions. But yeah, so essentially a change in strategy, and I think it will impact on our strategy beyond the next 6 months to 12 months, and our role as a tourist board as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lyndsey. And Chris, obviously you advise numerous businesses and tourism and hospitality. You have a lot of clients in that sector. What would you say to them over what do you think is going to be the difference for Napthens over the next 6 months?
I think that what this time has given us to do is probably to accelerate a lot of ideas that we've probably had in the past. I think probably law firms historically have been probably the last kind of sector to probably kind of move forwards at any sort of pace, really. I think over certainly the last couple of months, we've probably given an opportunity to think about, because we've had to, how we kind of communicate with clients in a different way, really. And some of the things we were probably planning to do, we've now taken forward and accelerated. I think it's significantly going to impact how we communicate with clients, how the different teams we've got communicate with each other. And I think it's certainly, in an odd sort of fashion, it's kind of brought the teams together within the firm as well. So I think, we've always had specialist departments, but being pushed into this virtual world, we've had to work together virtually to deal with clients, which has almost created a different dynamic. So I think kind of going forwards, we'll definitely proceed with this team ethos, as opposed to individual departments working by themselves and every now and again kind of collaborating with other departments. We were probably going to be now looking at working more closely together, integrating the teams together. That was always part of a plan, but it's probably been accelerated because we've had to do it really in these times. So it definitely has accelerated some of our plans that we had. And as I say, I suppose the way we service clients is going to be completely different. And I think the way we look at our group of clients changes as well. And certainly from our department, if I think about the last few weeks, we've been constantly engaged with clients, and that kind of relationship has grown in a significant way over a short period of time because of the way we've been communicating with them. So it's kind of trying to continue that as we go forwards. And I guess certainly one thing that we will have is different expectations from organisations as well. So expectations from clients in terms of the speed of response is probably going to be significantly greater, and that expectation is going to be different. So we again need to change to kind of meet those expectations going forward as well. So I think for us it's been good, it's been great, it's been obviously have the upfront adrenaline, I guess, of we've got to do something, and then through adrenaline comes the ideas that you have, and it's kind of taking those on as we go forward, really. So it's been a really, in a funny sort of way, and I kind of share Antony's views, it's kind of a really positive time, because it's allowed us to kind of throw off the shackles and say perhaps the way we did it before was not perhaps the way we should have been doing it, and going forwards it will be more effective, and it's got lots of different kind of I suppose consequences of that, which in terms of attracting talent to the firm, people working from home. We can recruit people from a wider geographical area to get a higher standard of lawyer into the firm as well. So yeah, it's been a really interesting time, really exciting in some respects.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. I was just going to say, obviously, Boost launched the Ask for Help service quite quickly as the crisis took hold, and a lot of tourism and hospitality businesses have never been able to access help from Boost previously because they're B2C businesses rather than B2B. Yeah. And I just wondered whether going forwards that's something that Boost will continue to do over the next 6 months, 12 months, support businesses who are not traditionally open for business support.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we did launch the Ask for Help campaign really quickly, and it was nice to be able to be open up to any business. And like you say, traditionally we are working with business to business clients, and to actually have that broader, wider opportunity to help businesses has been a pleasure for me. Again, it's a business. It's been sort of business as usual for us. Except we've been exceptionally busy. And the big difference is, whereas we're normally out and about across Lancashire, meeting with people face to face. Everything has been either by telephone and obviously on Zoom and other sort of means. And I think that's the biggest change for us within the business support sector, is that we're used to having, regular face-to-face meetings with people, partners, collaboration. And although that still goes on, I think the opportunity now would be that a lot of it will take place using technology. And I think on the back of that, where this role was very personable role, it was like, say, you get to see the country, you get to see the county, you get out and about, meet people. I think the fear is that you, for the past, 8 to 10 weeks, I've been sat at a desk in my house. And although I'm talking to people every day, it's not the same. And I think that is getting, it takes a bit to get used to, being literally stuck in the house and not being able to get in the car and go and visit people. I think also you miss, by using their technology, you miss going into businesses and seeing how those businesses operate. And again, I think on the positive side of things, it is business as usual, but again, we're seeing lots of positives where people are adapting their business in different ways. People are starting businesses, believe it or not, at this time. People are being very innovative in how they then deliver their products and services. I think it has forced people to embrace technology more. And I think especially in the hospitality tourism sector, it's something that you don't use as much as other sectors. And this is an opportunity. And like I say, those people out there have taken the time. I think they've given businesses the opportunity to work on the business instead of in the business. And I think those people that are smart and thinking about the future and wanting to secure their future actually are taking this time to work on their businesses rather than waste that time.
Thank you. Yes, Debbie, I agree. And I think the technology point's quite interesting because Lancashire has quite a lot of small micro businesses, independently owned businesses, and who may not have actually been able to or felt able to kind of maximise the use of technology previously. So I'd like to come back to Alison and Antony actually, because I know that you have a platform that you're making available to businesses who have only ever sold previously through physical face-to-face farmers markets or events. They've never actually had an online shop before. Maybe the most they've done is sell on Facebook with a direct contact. So could you tell us a little bit about, is it Adobo?
Abodo, yeah. So we launched, obviously, our primary business is ekm.com, which obviously provides online shops to people. And I sort of, when people always ask us what we do, like when grandparents and people ask us, because they still don't know now. Despite having done it for 18 years, people still don't know what it is that we do. I always say we're like a landlord, but rather than renting out shops on the high street, we rent them out online. And people can move in and put all their own categories and products on there, and that's the primary business. But when this crisis kicked off, what we saw, I think everyone's seen, is all these farm shops, your butchers, your bakers, your candlestick makers, the predominantly local businesses that maybe didn't sell online, starting to really struggle. And so we launched a Bodo, it's bodo.shop, isn't it, the website address, which is a local shop. So it's designed for these local businesses. So you can set a shop up totally for free. There's no cost with this. It's, trying to do something nice. It's totally for free. And you can set a shop up and sell to your local area. And people can order stuff for collection and things like that. To try to keep people going. And yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, because a lot of people were struggling and they'd never had any means to be able to look or never the need to look for it. But all of a sudden they were thrown into a world where they needed something quick and needed to be able to get online quickly to still keep stock moving, to keep the customers happy and to overall maintain that customer base that they'd spent years and years building up. You don't want to just all of a sudden lose that overnight, because they were still able to deliver contactless by taking an order, processing it, taking the card payments and dropping it off at your door. And I, for one, have done that with so many businesses in my local community that I think once this is all over and done with, I'm not going to go back to shopping the way that I did before. And I think a lot of people will find that the habits will change.
Yeah, and an awful lot of these businesses that have set up online now. Don't get me wrong; these businesses that weren't set up online before the crisis. You should have been selling online. We all know this. Come on, it's 2020. It's 2020. It's not 2000. It's not 1980 anymore. So we all know this, and they know that, and that's a really frustrating thing. They know this. When this has happened, the people that it's really affected that weren't selling online. They'd be sat there going, oh, why did I not do it? Why did I not do it? And so hopefully this 5-year kick that's happened now, we're now in 2025 or whatever, we've been pushed forward 5 years, that'll stay and these businesses will thrive. Like you're saying, they will thrive now because they've adapted. It's just a shame that some of these businesses needed this kick to do that.
And I think there is, a lot of nervousness amongst businesses about being able to sell online, about the secure kind of payment side of that and managing customers' payment details and things like that, that there's been a bit of naivety about how to do that. So I think kind of democratizing the access to that is a really positive thing.
Yeah, people come up with 100 reasons why not to do anything. You could tell me anything. I can come up with 100 reasons why not to do something, but that doesn't matter. Come up with the reasons why to do it. And so security is the one thing that everyone can always say, the internet, that ain't secure. My kids can't play on the internet because it's not secure. I can't buy something because it's not. Nothing's secure. Oh, if you open a shop on the high street, people say, what are you going to do about security online? What do you know about security on the high street? Have you got bouncers on the door? Have you got an armed security force, machine guns in case anyone steals anything? Nothing in this world is secure. The internet has got all those same bad people that you find walking around on the street. Of course it does. But the beauty of the internet is these days is it is secure because if you're using like a hosted system, it's all done for you. You don't have to do anything. I mean, something like EKM or Aboda is a hosted e-commerce platform. So it's all online. We're all used to this stuff now, like even this Zoom call. It's all online. It's not anything that we're having to run or anything like that. And that's the best way of doing it. And my analogy with this kind of stuff, especially with security and things, is if you wanted electricity now to your house, you've got two options. One is you go and buy yourself a generator. You then have to fuel that generator, but you've got ultimate control. You've got electricity, you're off the grid, you've got full control, but you've got to secure that generator as well. You've got to stop people from stealing it, stealing your fuel. You've got to maintain it, insure it, a lot of hassle. Whereas what most of us do is we connect to the national grid. Not our problem, it's somebody else's problem. We don't have to worry about someone stealing uranium or stealing some coal. Not our problem, it's someone else's problem. And that's what you can do with all this online stuff. Let someone else look after it, it's their problem. So when you talk about credit cards and stuff, for the most part, you never see them online. As an end user, you will never see that card data, ever. As an e-commerce platform like us, we will never even see it because it will stay on, say, PayPal servers or Stripe servers or WorldPay or HSBC. You've got that security. It's their problem. They're the people that have the problem to make sure those criminals can't get that data. In the same way that if you've got an online shop, let someone like us host it or other companies like us, it's their problem to secure it. It's not your problem. So don't take that responsibility in-house when you don't have to. It'd be like representing, and I know we're not Chris here from like Napthens and stuff, it'd be like representing yourself in court. If you're going to get arrested for something, of course you can do it. Of course you can do it, but why would you if you had the ability to get the world's best lawyers to protect you or whatever? And that's what this is. You've got to just be sensible, haven't you, with security and stuff. But it's not a big deal. People just use it as an excuse not to do it. And that's what this is. It's been our security is why I cannot sell on the internet. No, it's not. The reason why you're not selling it is because you can't be arsed doing it. Let's be honest. And now you've been forced to do it.
Well, let's hope a lot of people will be doing it now. And Debbie, is there any support available to businesses who are looking to make more use of technology?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously the business support is opened up to anybody up until September. So on the Boost Business Lancashire website, all they need to do is look at events, and there are a number of masterclass webinars that are hosted. Choose Chorley do a masterclass around technology, social media, the use of IT every Wednesday. People can click in and register for that. Internally, the skill support for the workforce, they just have to get in contact with us and we'll put them through to the right people. So yeah, there's a range of webinars out there at the moment. And then I think when things go back to normal, those people that do want to invest in themselves, there's the local colleges that they can, register for a class and learn how to use technology. Anyone out there at the moment can have a meeting with any of the 10 advisors at Growth Lancashire. What we do is look at where they are, where they want to get to, and obviously act as that independent, impartial broker to get them the support that they need. And we will be putting them in touch with, a number of other support organisations that can help them with technology.
And does that include financial support, Debbie?
At the moment, because it's all under the COVID banner, everything is funded up until September, because we're treating every business as we would an ERDF eligible business. So yeah, there's no charge to them at the moment. Whether that gets extended past September, we can only wait and see. But I would like to, personally, I would like to think that we can help any business, going forward. But I guess it depends on where the funding comes from and the eligibility criteria.
Yeah. So yes, obviously, technology, access to technology, being able to sell online and provide services online has been more critical than ever, but our businesses are beginning to look forward to opening their doors and welcoming people back. We have an awful lot of small kind of an independent accommodation providers across the county. Lyndsey, one of the questions that we've had in is, so far the season's just been kind of catastrophic. There's been no business at all whatsoever. Just as businesses were about to open for Easter and the lockdown began. And kind of, do we believe that there's going to be a domestic tourism boom once people are able to travel that's going to help some of these businesses claw back that lost income?
We'd already been planning for the return of international tourism later on in the year, kind of final quarter of the year. And you may have seen some of our research that indicates we're forecasting a £15 billion loss based on our kind of latest modelling around that. And in a normal world, that would leave a bigger domestic opportunity, a bigger pool from which we can draw from for domestic tourism. But it's safe to say that the government messaging around stay safe, stay at home has been really effective. And the population overall have been really supportive of that message. So our consumer sentiment research is suggesting that there's still a massive amount of uncertainty and anxiety about summer holidays, and that actually quite a low number of people are considering a domestic break over the next 6 months. So I think I think we have to be very cautious around all of this and our messaging. And we are forecasting a £22 billion loss of spend for domestic, so significant losses. As you said, key period for tourism. We've lost the Easter holidays. We've lost the May bank holiday, spring bank holiday, summer holidays for school kids. So what we do know is that when people are feeling able to travel, they are going to go where they can socially distance. So a lot of support for rural, seaside, and in particular outdoor attractions like gardens. And we've seen a little bit of an uplift in camping bookings, so that's quite interesting. That they will prefer to travel in their own car, and that flexibility is going to be absolutely critical to any forward bookings of domestic breaks. So they're going to want to see, pay a deposit, but actually they get nearer to the time of the holiday, giving them kind of a year or 18 months flexibility to move that holiday into the future is going to be crucial. So I think they're quite interesting things to think about from a tourism business perspective in terms of getting ready to receive any particular visitors. For us, the focus on domestic is going to be around reassurance. So it's very different to any campaigns that we've done domestically previously. So this is very much about public advice. So where is open? Where has capacity to take visitors? Because we know that there are parts of the country that at the moment, they do not want visitors. It's going to be a much more sophisticated approach, like a heat map approach, looking across the country at who has the potential to meet any demand. And of course, we're working really closely across the industry. So this is not about us doing that in isolation. We're in constant contact with government on recovery and what that programme might look like, working with DMOs and all of the industry bodies to make sure that, we're in the best possible position to take up any domestic potential over the year ahead.
And so in terms of that reassurance and giving consumers the confidence to ease themselves back out more quickly, I mean, we've been doing some consumer insight as well. We're still analysing the findings. The survey closes this week. But we have kind of seen that there is, amongst certain demographics, a will to get out as soon as it is safe to do so, as soon as they're advised that it's safe to do so. So what can businesses do around kind of trying to make sure that we've seen all the new guidance come out, COVID secure guidance for various different sectors. Retail are getting a lot more information at the moment. So obviously we hope that information will come out for tourism and hospitality businesses soon, although a lot of them are just trying to implement whatever it is they feel they need to do. How can they actually kind of prove to consumers that all of these things are being taken seriously and that people can safely come and visit?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points on that. Just for businesses who may not be aware that we do have a business advice hub, which is regularly updated, and that is www.visitengland.org/business advice. And there is a COVID section on that advice hub, which it's quite a task keeping on top of all of the various guidance and funding and things that are available. But it is the best place to go right now for information on what we're offering as the Tourist Board, but also what's out there in terms of government support. And other support across the industry bodies. So that's point one. The government is publishing guidance, as you know. They have come out, I think most people will have seen their practical actions, like the 5 steps that you can take. And it's focused on employers and employees and self-employed. And there's different types of workplace that are identified in that guidance, but none of them are tourism specific at the moment. Retail has just come out ahead of, obviously, the retail sector being able to open more fully, so non-essential shops being able to open. That was kind of a couple of weeks ahead, so we can anticipate the same for tourism. So at the moment, they are saying 4th of July is going to be the earliest possible time that tourism businesses, we don't have much detail yet on whether it will be blanket all businesses or whether it will be a staggered approach. Much will depend on the 5 tests of the government and what the statistics and data are telling them at that particular point. But we can anticipate, if it goes according to plan, that there will be some guidance on tourism, like, for example, accommodation, different elements of the tourism sector, by the middle of the month, ready for the 4th of July opening. In terms of what we're focusing on, we recognise that reassurance, it's not enough just to go out with a reassurance message to the consumer. That needs to be backed up with something, and that something is what we're calling an industry standard at the moment. So there has been some press around this. We are talking, this has come to force on the back of lots of lobbying from the industry saying this would be a good thing. So it will be a mark, an online self-certification that all businesses can go through, and it will signpost to existing guidance. So it's not about creating any new guidance. So it is a way that we can signpost and streamline to official guidance where it exists, and to the quite granular guidance that is being developed by sector bodies, like UK Hospitality, for example, where there's a kind of additional tier of detail there that I don't think you would expect to see in the government guidance. And at the end of that process, there'll be kind of a set of key questions that they need to fill out and give us confidence that they understand in terms of tips and things that they can do on their premises. They will then be issued with a mark that they can use on their collateral in their promotional activity around their property, and a toolkit to support that. So this is in its in discussion stage with the industry. We're currently getting sign-off from government as to whether we can proceed. So we should have news in the next week or two on that. And that will be supported by this early recovery domestic campaign, which is more of a public advice campaign about the standard, what visitors can expect from the tourism sector, and the support around that in terms of industry.
Okay, thanks, Lyndsey. And just bringing those industry bodies in there, David, obviously we've got an awful lot of, very proud of our pub and restaurant network across Lancashire, some great places for people to go out to eat and drink. But I think it's one of the sectors that might be finding it hardest to look at how they begin to reopen their doors. What kind of advice and support is available to your sector?
And a number of different phases, I guess, Rachel. In terms of business survival, obviously there's a grant regime targeted at hospitality businesses that's been administered by local authorities, and we've been pushing hard. Excuse me, just turn this phone off. We've been pushing hard for to make sure that local authorities pass that money on in grant funds to businesses that need it. But as we move forward, as we think about restart, as Lyndsey said, a lot will be driven by the guidance. So we need to make sure that everyone has the resources to be compliant with that guidance, and that the guidance is proportional. Because if you're a small business, you may not have the level of resources that some of the larger managed operators have to undertake create the kind of regimes that the guidance will want the businesses to do. So we're on a government task force that met the first time last week, specifically looking at pubs and restaurants, just thinking about the workability of this. What do we need to protect our staff, to protect our customers, to provide the kind of reassurance, but also to ensure that if you go out, it's a joyful and not a joyless experience. Because if we end up with pubs that are full of perspex screens and we can't talk to each other, and we can't interact with each other, no one's going to go. No one's going to want to go out into that kind of environment. So we need to use the technologies, and I'm very interested in the whole discussion around technology, because for the pub sector, we haven't been historically great users of technology. Maybe this is our time. Maybe this is our time around things like bookings to get much more savvy with how we can use apps and other technologies to interact with our customers, to provide the kind of communications with our customers that we need to provide. But it's difficult because we're often talking about spontaneous businesses. We're not talking about processes that can be organized in advance. We decide to go to the pub on a spur of the moment. You decide to go for a drink spontaneously. You don't want to lose that spontaneity by having to pre-book a timed drinking slot. Now, I don't think that system's going to work in pubs where they're not particularly food-led businesses. I think it would work better in a food-led business where people are used to booking tables and will get used to using that technology if they have to. So there's some really significant challenges for us to be ready for a July restart, if indeed pubs are allowed to restart at the beginning of July. It's not yet clear whether all hospitality businesses will be able to open. We may take the Scottish route, which means that pubs with beer gardens are allowed to open first, because there is some evidence that shows that the spread of virus is less in the open air, but that won't apply to all pubs businesses. And of course it's risky, because you might open with a beer garden and then it pours down with rain and everyone wants to take cover, and you've got too many people in your pub and you can't observe social distancing. So lots of questions that still haven't been answered, and we're hoping over the next few weeks we will have those answers so that the businesses can start to plan to get some of the summer trade that they desperately don't want to lose.
And how, in terms of your members, how are they feeling about actually being able to observe social distancing, either in beer gardens or inside their own facilities? Because 2 meters apart is easy enough to, I suppose, observe in a big enough shop, but in a small bar or pub, it's obviously much more difficult. There is some guidance about kind of face coverings if you can't maintain 2 meter distance, but I don't know how your members are feeling about what that means.
Well, the estimates that we've had from our members is that 70% of the businesses couldn't trade viably with a 2 meter social distancing rule. So we've relayed that to government. We know that 2 meters isn't set in stone around the world. There are some markets that have a meter social distance, some have 1.5 meters. The Public Health England chose 2 meters. We think that will need to be reviewed to enable these pubs to trade, because as you say, smaller pub businesses, it won't be viable. Smaller restaurants, it won't be viable to take out quite as many covers as you need to take out in order to facilitate the distance between you. And what happens about bar service? Can you still serve people at the bar? If you can't do that for a lot of pubs, it's going to be impractical. So yeah, all those practical considerations that flow from the social distancing rules, they're all up for discussion at the moment. And once we've got clarity from the government's task force, and as Lyndsey said, those discussions are ongoing around protocols. Once we've got those clarified, we will then be able to communicate with businesses as to what they need to do to plan. They may still take a decision then that it's not going to work for them, and that they will not trade until we've defeated this virus, and we've got a tracking and tracing system in place, which means you can go out comfortably without having to worry about social distancing. That's some way down the line, I think. So it would be a difficult judgment for some businesses.
Thank you, David. And I know, obviously, the extension of the furlough scheme, although we don't know the details yet about how that will be extended, obviously government has said that they will support that scheme for longer now. Chris, in terms of your awareness of how many people are using the furlough scheme and you know, how many will want to do so going forwards, you know, what's the view of the sense of how the scheme might change in terms of being able to bring flexible working back? So maybe people could return part-time or just some members of staff. What's your view on that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, all the sounding seems to be that there's going to be a contribution by the employer. So there's going to be smaller contribution by the government, and whether that's 60%, we don't know. And then an expectation that the employer will contribute as well, and then allowing to unlock the furlough, I guess, to unlock the kind of situation we're in. They're going to suggest that employees can work part-time. So obviously it's a condition now that employees cannot work for their employer whilst furloughed. So I think, you know, that scheme has been great, and you know it was like 71% of businesses in the UK use the scheme. It's going to be how we unpick this going forwards, I guess, and that's the challenge. And I think whilst the extension of the furlough scheme was great for certain sectors, especially hospitality sector, and I guess the kind of the sectors that aren't going to be going back to work in the next few weeks, it does create an issue as well in terms of you know, question, are there currently employees off on furlough who effectively, I guess, are de facto redundant at this point, and employers are going to have to kind of get their heads around how they deal with those employees. Until we know what that scheme looks like, I guess it's going to be difficult to accurately plan ahead. But certainly once we've got the details, that will make life a lot easier. But I think it's, you know, I think employers will, you know, I guess every employer is going to try and retain the staff and retain as many employees as they can. But for some organisations, it's just not going to be possible, I don't think, and that's where the other strategies are going to have to be brought in, I guess, whether that's, you know, a variation to contracts or unpaid leave or what, you know, or whatever it is, I guess. But it's certainly given employers an opportunity to think and an opportunity to plan going forward. I remember going back to pre-March 20th when the Chancellor made the initial announcement about the furlough scheme. It, you know, all the discussion was around, and can we lay off? Can we make redundancies? How do we do it? How long have we got to do it? Obviously, the furlough scheme gave a bit of respite to that and a chance to think. But certainly this week and probably next week, once we've got the announcement, that's going to be the critical period, I think, for employers to think, well, right, we can probably look ahead now. We can probably now plan and kind of work out how we're going to treat and, you know, how we're going to deal with the workforce going forwards.
What are the implications for both employers and employees in this situation? Because if people are changing their business models and they may find that they don't actually need as many staff, actual bodies to continue in a way that they've begin to move towards, what kind of protection is there on both sides, really, for people that have been on furlough but may not get a job to go back to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point. I mean, kind of one of the difficult issues which has come out of the extension of the furlough scheme has been in terms of a fair dismissal. So clearly, in terms of an employee has a duty to be treated fairly and reasonably in any redundancy process, and in fact in anything with an employment contract. But what might happen is that an employer decides that they don't want 20% of the workforce. So they may say, well, we don't need 20% of the workforce. Now, if that happens, they will have to adopt, well, they'll first of all have to assess which area of work has ceased or diminished, or which department is no longer required, or how many within a department aren't required. So there might be pooling of staff. They will then have to adopt a selection criteria. Now, what may happen is that the employees currently on furlough may be selected for redundancy, and that might cause issue for the employer, because the employer will still have to be able to justify the selection of those employees. So it can't just be a de facto decision. That person is on furlough and therefore they are selected for a redundancy. There would still have to be a fair selection criteria, whether that's based on performance, hitting KPIs, whether it targets, whatever it is. And of course, the people on furlough will not have been able to have, haven't performed for 3 months, 4 months, whatever it may be, by the time we get to the redundancy situation. So there's going to be some issues in terms of the test of fairness and reasonableness becoming under some question, I think, when we get to say we get to September, October time, and an employer decides that they now want to make a redundancy. If they automatically select the people on furlough, then that which will be the temptation, I think. I think there'll be serious issues of fairness at that point. But in terms of the employer looking at the workforce now, as I say, what underpins the employment contract is this kind of trust and confidence and acting reasonably. And if they're looking to, I suppose, make redundancies, they've got to identify the pool of employees and select fairly. It might be that the employer has a unique role, which just by a matter of fact selects itself. But the employer might also be looking at other things. You know, they may be looking at layoff in due course. So they may, for example, look to lay off employees for a temporary period of time, which they can only do if they have a clause within the contract of employment to do so. So we might get back to those discussions that we were having previously before the furlough scheme was introduced. So, yeah, the employer has to act cautiously, and I guess work within the parameters of fairness and reasonableness to ensure that an employee is ultimately, if they have to dismiss, that's done properly and fairly. But it very much depends on the course that the employer seeks to go down, I guess. But certainly in terms of a redundancy exercise, the general principles of fairness and reasonableness, fair selection, consultation with employees, trying to look at ways to avoid the redundancy, trying to look at any alternative employment that may exist, are kind of the fundamental principles, I guess, of a fair redundancy.
Thanks, Chris. And I know, Lyndsey, you spoke at the start about the predictions as to how much this is going to kind of hurt the industry in terms of economic terms. What about in people terms? Have we got any kind of predictions for, what this is going to mean for the industry? How many jobs might be lost as a result?
Sorry, I don't have that data. I'm not sure if it exists, but I can find out. I'm sure different parts of the sector have got their own research on this, no doubt, like accommodation, UK hospitality, probably the best source to go for that. I think inevitably there will be some impacts, but there's also opportunity as well. So I think, just to mirror some of what was said earlier around, innovation and, some businesses moving to online. So I just don't think we're at that stage yet where that's the right message. So I think part of our role as the National Tourist Board is to show some of that innovation when the time is right, and that best practice across the country, but also globally as well. There's quite a lot going on in other countries. But again, we have to be cautious. I'm sure there will be some ramifications of COVID across all different parts of the sector, like DMOs and others who are rethinking their business models and how they work as we move forward.
And do you think that there's only, I know things are being considered at various different levels, but somebody's asked about thoughts on lower VAT for tourism businesses going forward to aid recovery. I know it's something that comes out quite a lot in industry talks about tourism and hospitality, and it kind of being a very highly taxed sector already. Do you have any sense of whether government's considering interventions like that?
No, there's all sorts of interventions on the table, as you can imagine, and we're playing a key role in our government advisory role at the moment, corralling, different parts of the industry and getting those in front of ministers and others to make their, specific cases and to coordinate and pull the message together. There is a lot going on within government at the moment, lots to think about. Ideas and suggestions around the recovery programme are already being pulled together and are going up to ministers. So I can't comment specifically on the VAT issue. I don't know if you've seen the press around the idea of an additional bank holiday in October.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind we've lost Easter and we've lost the May bank holidays. That seems to be getting quite a bit of traction at the moment. There was a lot of press about it. So I think there's a lot in the mix and a lot in the frame, but I can't comment specifically on that one.
Okay, thank you. And I'm conscious of time, so we are nearing the end of the session. I'm going to come to everybody actually and ask for a kind of a one piece of advice, if you could give any. We are in English Tourism Week, which feels slightly unusual being as none of our tourism businesses are open, but we're still keen to celebrate the sector and to seek support for the sector, certainly in government and from MPs and ministers. But if I can just go around everybody and ask if you were to give kind of one piece of advice to a business in the tourism and hospitality sector at the moment, what that would be. Debbie, can I come to you first, please? Put you on the spot.
I think that there is an opportunity for the hospitality and tourism sector to take advantage of the business support that's available out there now. And what I would suggest is that any business in Lancashire pick up the phone, dial 0800 488 0057, or look at the Boost Business Lancashire website and get in touch with us, and we'd be more than happy to have a chat and see how we can help them either be innovative, take advantage of technology, check their viability of even opening up and what that means, and actually, looking at perhaps new ways on how they can deliver their products and services.
Thank you, Debbie. And yes, the Boost website has got an awful lot of helpful information on there, so for businesses that can access it. Antony and Alison, can I come to you, please, for your final word of advice to our businesses?
Mine would be to be optimistic. If you're in the tourism industry now, we live in such a beautiful country with beautiful places, with amazing things to do and to see. Shout about it, talk to your customers, be positive, and make sure that you share the good times and expect these good times to come back. Don't sit back and think that it's all doom and gloom. It's not. We've got a unique, we're all under pressure, but we've also got a unique opportunity to really shout about what's amazing.
I suppose mine would be get off your arse and do something about it, and see this what it is. This is the biggest opportunity for most people and most businesses probably in our lifetime. Yes, no one would have wanted this. But if you think of like tourism and stuff in England, people aren't getting on a plane. People aren't going jumping on a plane anytime soon. So as long as you can survive this part of this, you're going to have a massive boom. If you can adapt your bars and restaurants, like David were talking about it, like why can the UK not be like everywhere else in the world where you sit down with your friends on a nice table and someone comes to you and asks you what you want, rather than having to stand 4 deep at a bar and fight to get served? Why can we not use this to evolve businesses, evolve ourselves, and be living a little bit in the future where we should be? See it as the opportunity that it is.
Thank you. And Chris, can I come to you, please?
I think mine would be focus on your purpose. I think so. I think from an employee point of view, I think every business, or at least the majority of businesses, have started off with a purpose. That's not going to go away. Kind of why they got into business. I think, you know, we've all got employees as well, and I think a lot of employees at the moment are probably sat at home thinking, what's coming next? And I think try and kind of re-communicate that purpose to them, and also kind of re-communicate it to yourself as well, because that's the driving force going forwards. And if that means that you need to reinvent the way you do things, then that's fine, but kind of stick to that original purpose.
Thank you. Good advice. And David, in terms of advice for businesses in your sector, what's the one thing you think people should be focusing on?
Two things really. One is remind people, I think Alison said, remind people what they're missing. And it is that joyful experience of going out and enjoying a night out or a day out with friends and family. That's what people are missing most in this crisis, and what they'll want to do when we're out of it. So remind them of that, remind them of what your business offers them and has offered them, whether it's in the local community or, you know, whether it's a music venue, whatever it might be. You know, what you've done in the past, you will do again, and you'll do it better. Don't be paralyzed by the spreadsheets of doom. I know that's easy to say because, you know, these are difficult times, but think about the opportunities that come from this, and plan for a positive restart. And don't think you're on your own. Seek support, because there are lots of organizations like yours that are out there precisely to help businesses to have the tools that they need to trade successfully again when they're able to. So you make use of it, make use of that support. Don't be afraid to, don't be ashamed to.
Thank you, David. And Lyndsey, last word with you and with Visit Britain. Particular piece of advice?
Support your local DMO. They're absolutely critical to the recovery. We need them as the National Tourist Board, as a key partner, but local businesses definitely need them. They're all doing a fantastic job on your behalf. So please to continue to work with them and engage with them at this kind of really difficult time for everybody. If I can have another one, do look at our advice hub that I mentioned earlier, and sign up for the Visit England, Visit Britain newsletter if you haven't already, because we're issuing quite a lot of up-to-date and updates on guidance through that mechanism. So it's a good way for keeping on top of anything new that's coming out. And just to mirror what other folks have said, you know, start to innovate now. I know there's a lack of guidance coming out of government at the moment, and we're all waiting for that over the next couple of weeks. But we know, you know, we can anticipate some level of social distancing, an emphasis and a renewed focus on cleanliness. None of that will be new news. So I think start thinking now about how you can put some of those things into practice in your business, so that you're ready to go when guidance is clear.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lyndsey, and thank you to all of the panel. I think that's been a really interesting conversation. For anybody that doesn't know what a DMO is, Marketing Lancashire is your local DMO. So please do come to us. We're here to help in whatever way we can. marketinglancashire.com has a lot of information. It links out to the Boost website. There's a spotlight on EKM, Alison and Antony there as well, with some information about Abodo if you're interested in selling online. Shame you if you aren't already. And really anything that we can do to help, please get in touch with us, and we will continue to share this information as it comes through. Chris, obviously they're talking about the furlough scheme. We're expecting more information about that. Other interventions that government announces, we will let you know as soon as we possibly can. So thank you for your time, thank you for listening, and we will look forward to you being open again hopefully soon and being able to come and visit you again. Take care.